All right. Hi, everybody. This is Yaron Brook. I'm here in London, and I figure I would test out some equipment and at the same time maybe give you a quick update on things in London. And I'm curious about what you think of how the video and audio works and whether, we can use this setup for future shows. So let me know in the comments, both on YouTube and on Facebook, what you think of this. I know it's, let's see, what is it now? It's kind of early on the West Coast. It's middle of the day on the East Coast. Here in London, it's 4:15. There is snow everywhere, snow and mud basically everywhere. Now in London, when it snows like half an inch, the city basically shuts down. The trains don't work. The subway, the underground works, but the trains don't work, and the underground is spotty. But people don't come into work. School is canceled. It's pretty amazing how I guess ineffective the Brits are at dealing with bad weather. So number of events. I've had a couple meeting and one talk canceled because of the weather. Yesterday, one of the schools canceled on me. They sent all the kids home early because of it. So. This is, yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's pretty though, I have to say. It's kind of dark and miserable and really cold. It's been, it was 27 degrees most of the day. I think it's warming up a little bit right now. It's maybe 31 degrees. So for me, for now, a Puerto Rican boy like me, it's pretty cold. So I'm freezing in London. Hopefully, you guys are doing better all over the place. Somebody's asking me if I ski. I do not ski. I have a bad back. I've always had a bad back, and certainly in the last few years, I've had one. In Israel, of course, there is no skiing. There's one mountain where you can ski. So I never learned in Israel, and then by the time I got to the U.S. and by the time I could afford skiing, my back was just too bad for me to be able to do any skiing. So yeah, right now we are, yeah, the Brits are, as I said, struggling to cope with snow. In a little while, I'm going off to speak at the London School of Economics for the Hayek Society at the London School of Economics. It'll be interesting to see how many people show up given the kind of pathetic ability of the Brits to deal with a little bit of snow. So we'll see if that has an impact on turnout. Hopefully not. Hopefully we'll get a good turnout. We'll see. All right. So far I've done, let's see, three, five, six talks at British high schools. Really, it's been terrific. All the high schools have been the faculty have been incredibly friendly. They've all invited me back. So anytime I'm in England, they say, come by, you can speak to our kids. That's pretty amazing. The students have been, the usual mix of mostly combative students who are strong advocates of Keynesian economics or some version of that mixed economy, altruism. Altruism is so hard to rip out of people's minds. I mean, the questions: what about the poor? What about these poor? What about those poor? Always the main type of questions I get at these talks. But I've had great attendance in all these places. I don't think any of them has been fewer than 40. Max was, my guess is over 200 at Radley College at Oxford. I've spoken at one all-girls school, but most of the schools have been, and one all-boys school, and the other schools have all been co-ed schools. It's been and again, students are smart, they're combative, they're asking lots of questions. But in almost all the schools, somebody has come up to me and said, wow, where do I read more? Where do I find out more? And of course, I refer them all to Ayn Rand. At one of the schools, Radley, where this was the second time I've spoken, one of the students I noticed had a copy of Equal is Unfair, my book, and Atlas Shrugged with him. And I said, hey, that's great. How come you're reading those books? And he said, well, I attended your lecture last year, and it really inspired me, and I got Atlas Shrugged, and now I'm hooked. And he said, as are several people here, several of the students here, and we have lots of discussions and debates about Ayn Rand. Yes, exactly the effect I want to have. So We're making a mark. There's definitely now an increase of interest in Ayn Rand among high school students in England because last year I spoke at 7 schools. This year I'm speaking at 13. Well, one canceled, so no, 12. So one canceled, so it'll probably be 11 unless we reschedule for next week. So there's definitely a resurgence. Now I'm thinking every time every time I come to London or to the UK, we'll try to do some high school talks. Really, I think a lot of the barrier for this is going to be financial. It's expensive to come to London. It's a long way, and the Institute, the Ayn Rand Institute, right now does not have the budget to pay me to do all these talks. So, if you guys value me doing these talks at high schools, send a check to Ayn Rand Institute. Write on the check for Yaron Brook doing high school talks in England or in anywhere. But so. Yeah, I mean, the Institute needs to hear from you if you want them to fund. If not, if you want to fund it directly, you can go to Patreon and make a contribution to my cause on Patreon and say high school talks in the UK, and I'll apply your funding to these high school talks. But it is expensive, flying over here. I only fly business these days, given my back, staying at a nice hotel and everything. I figure the 2 weeks here, everything in, having a driver drive me to some of the more remote schools, we're probably looking at 10K just for me to spend 11 days in England with everything in. So it's not cheap. It's not cheap. But if we can raise money for it, I'd love to do more of this. And I think there's a lot of demand out there to do a lot more. What I find particularly interesting, and this is a difference between the US and the UK, is in the US, you're going to get real hostility. In the US, people are going to be really hostile to the message and hostile to the very idea of presenting Ayn Rand to students. Now, again, we distribute to a lot of teachers in the US Ayn Rand books, so there's a lot of teachers in the US who are open to this. But I think there are also going to be teachers who are very hostile. My experience in the UK so far has been that even teachers that disagree with the ideas are not overtly hostile. I had a number of teachers telling me, I disagreed with everything you said, but it's great to expose the kids to contrasting views and to get them really thinking. And there's going to be a buzz around the school for the next 2 weeks, and it's going to keep I'm going to be busy combating all of this. And this is terrific. This is great. And they're very supportive and very excited about it. So there isn't this visceral anti-Ayn Rand response in the UK or in other countries around the world that there is in the United States. And this is a real opening for us because in the United States, it's very hard to get to universities and to get to high schools because, no, you can't teach Ayn Rand, she's the devil. And you don't get that. At least I have not received that at the universities I've gone to or at the high schools I'm going to, and more. So I think that's an incredible opportunity for us to increase our influence among high school students, maybe all over the world, not just in the UK, but really all over the world. So I'm kind of excited for what the future holds and what we can do over time in various high schools and various universities across the world. The US, much harder, much more difficult to get a foothold because of this resistance. Again, even when they sit and listen and they hear all the radical stuff I'm saying, the most I get from them afterwards is I disagree, but it's great because you're getting the kids thinking. One of the things that impresses them the most is what happens usually with my talks is by the end of the talk, you've got tons of questions, and usually I run out of time or they kick me out before I've answered all the questions. We can go on for hours and hours and hours. And of course, I am happy to go on for hours and hours and hours, schedule allowing, but the teachers always ended at some point so that they're always impressed by that. They say, we have lots of speakers come here and very rarely are the students so engaged and so involved and want to ask so many questions. So even though they might not agree with what I say, the teachers that is, they are thrilled and excited by the very fact that their students are so engaged, they're so student focused. And again, I don't think you get that same attitude in the United States. Now, granted, I am going here in the UK to private schools, or what we in America call private schools. Here they call them public schools, but basically private schools. So this is maybe very different than the kind of teacher union standardized teachers that we get in the U.S. Now, not to be all negative on the U.S., I did speak. I think I said this in one of my shows. I did speak recently at a school, actually a low-income school in Orange County, California, and the teacher was incredibly friendly and invited me and was very supportive, and the students were engaging, and it was a terrific experience. So it's not to say that all my experiences in the U.S. are negative. It's just that on average, the experiences here in the U.K. and generally outside of the U.S. are more positive. There's just less of this visceral resistance to it. So that's great. It's also interesting that the teachers here in the UK are aware of the fact that Ayn Rand is going to be taught required reading as part of A1 politics classes. A1 is like advanced or like the AP in the US. So they're going to have to teach Ayn Rand. And we at the Ayn Rand Institute are providing a lot of the materials that these teachers will be using to teach Ayn Rand. So that's also an exciting opportunity for us because we're getting to help set the curriculum for these at these schools and for these classes. So I don't know, a lot happening in the UK. Very exciting. I wish it could come more often. I wish we had the resources to get me and others from the Ayn Rand Institute here more often, speaking to more schools, speaking at more teachers, speaking at more universities. Which reminds me, two of my talks in the UK recently up on YouTube, just went up on YouTube. One was a talk I gave at Exeter last November on the evils of socialism. I encourage you to go see that. That's on YouTube and on Blog Talk Radio if you just wanted to listen to it. And the talk I gave just a few days ago, like on Monday at Radley College on free speech, is including the Q&A with the students, is already up on my YouTube channel and went up, I think, today on Blog Talk Radio. So both of those talks, recent talks from the UK, you can already access. Also, a talk that I don't think is being watched a lot, a video that hasn't been watched a lot, but I think was a good talk at Cardiff University from last November as well, is also on my YouTube channel. It's a little bit down, but if you put in Cardiff University, you'll probably be able to find it. So a lot going on. Tomorrow I go to two schools. One, JAGS is one of the top girls' schools in the UK, so very highly rated, very highly regarded. Hopefully they don't cancel because of the weather. And then I go to Sutton Grammar School. Sutton Grammar School is I don't know much about the school, but here a student invited me to come and speak, and he's organizing the whole event. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets some traction, if we get good attendance. But that is in Sutton. Both those schools are kind of south of London, and it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how I get there. We'll have to take some trains and some adventures in getting there with the snow. I might have to hire a driver, so it's going to be expensive. And then next week I've got a talk at a school on Monday. I talk at a school on Tuesday, and I talk at a school on Wednesday, before I head back to the United States on Thursday to go to Denver, where I'll be speaking at the leadership program of the Rockies. All right, let's see if there is any. Let's see if there's any questions here on Facebook that I can answer quickly. Is there any particular experience you've had with a student that stands out? I mean, I mentioned the fact that students at Radley, who was inspired by my talk last year to get really engaged with Ayn Rand. I've had this at a number of schools. So the same thing happened to me at Westminster on Monday. That's probably the third or fourth time I've been in Westminster. Every time I go, I meet students who from the year before are now much more engaged with Ayn Rand ideas, much more talking, much more reading a lot, and so on. So there's definitely an effect. I can tell the effect I'm having when I go back to these schools. You know, and that's exciting. Yesterday, I talked to the Wellington College, which is another high school, and a student at the end came up and said, you know, surprisingly, I agreed with everything you said during the talk. What do I read? You know, how do I learn about this stuff? And of course, I told him Atlas Shrugged, Fountainhead, Virtue of Selfishness, Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. Read Ayn Rand, and you can also read my books, but go and read Ayn Rand. So, and he was all excited writing everything down. So those are great. Those are great. The event tonight at the LSC is definitely open to the public. If you go to my Facebook page, there's information there. ARI Europe, Ayn Rand Institute. Actually, it's called Global now, right, Annie? It's called Global. You can find information about the talk tonight there, and it's definitely open to the public. I hope a lot of students show up, but that is too. Let's see. Yeah, so generally my talks, again, I recommend my talk on socialism in Exeter. My Exeter talks are being very well filmed. Unfortunately, and I think this is why it took so long to get the Exeter talk up. The talk this time at Exeter is pretty dark. I don't know. I think the crew there screwed up the filming, and the quality is just not as good. But one of the nice things they do at Exeter when they film me is they film the audience as well as me. So you're getting some reaction shots from the audience, and I think that makes the lecture more interesting and more entertaining to have that kind of reaction shots going on. Okay, 2 questions. Are you going to be doing any, what's that? Literatures? I don't know what literatures mean. In the Boston area. Nothing planned for Boston, unfortunately. I wish I got some invitations to Boston. I'd love to do it. Do you think Ayn Rand should be taught in high school? Definitely think Ayn Rand should be taught in high school. I think Anthem is appropriate for pretty much anybody over 9th grade. I think Fountainhead should be taught in AP English classes. I think it's a classic American novel. I think even Atlas Shrugged can be taught in AP English classes, but certainly Fountainhead. And then I think Anthem should be taught in the module where kids are being taught 84 and Brave New World and kind of the dystopian novel module. So yes, definitely. Could it be that non-American teachers feel less threatened than American teachers do because non-American teachers are more confident that their own students won't ultimately be won over by Ayn Rand's ideas? I don't think so. I don't see any evidence of that, and I don't think it's true. I think that I actually think it's more likely that some of these English kids, British kids, are going to be won over than American kids, and I think the main reason for that is that the educational system here is far superior to that in the United States. So, if you listen to a podcast I did recently where I interviewed Bradley Thompson, it's also on YouTube as a video, about progressive education in America, you know, progressive education has not been anywhere near as big in places like the UK and the rest of Europe. So the fundamental basic education that these kids are getting in terms of their ability to think, I'm not talking about the facts, their professors are still generally lefty, but there's a difference between a leftist who teaches you and is trying to get you to think and does not trying to elevate emotions above reason as the purpose, and who's not trying to socialize you as the purpose, but is still focused on reason, on facts, on evidence, and thinking. Then in the United States, where the purpose of education is to socialize you, the purpose of education is to put you in touch with your emotions and to elevate your pseudo self-esteem by giving you lots of ribbons. I don't get that at all in British schools. I don't get that at all in British schools. So I actually think we have a better chance of getting kids to be interested in objectivism in the UK than we do in the US because of the superior educational system. I think that's true of Israel. I think that's true of Scandinavia. I think that's true of Eastern Europe. I think that's even true of Latin America, at least the better schools in Latin America, and definitely true in Asia. So I'm down on the US because, not because of the American people, but because of the American educational system is so backward and so corrupt. All right, let me see. Is there any evidence is there any chance you would ever give a speech in the UK advocating for the privatization of the NHS? Absolutely. I mean, I call for the privatization of the NHS almost in every speech that I give in the UK. It gets me in trouble, but I do in almost every speech here. The challenge is to have somebody invite me to give a speech on a host speech on the privatization of the NHS. I would love to do it, and would love to do an event, a debate. So if somebody wants to sponsor a speech like that, or if somebody wants to sponsor a debate and invite me and find another side, maybe that would be a good event to do at Exeter in later this year, or to do at some other British university. But I would love to do an event just dedicated to privatizing healthcare. I could do that same speech, by the way, in the U.S., because it's not like the U.S. has private healthcare. Okay, let's see. Are you planning to do any talks in Denmark anytime soon? I'm not, to a large extent, because I don't tend to get large audiences in Denmark. It's sad, but it's true. I've been to Denmark many, many times. I've given lots of talks there, although most of those have been affiliated with Saxo. But when I go and it's not affiliated with Saxo, when I just do it myself, we just don't get the turnout. And also, I just haven't been invited. So again, if you want me to come and talk in your country, in your school, at your university, this is true in the US, this is true in Europe, this is true in Asia and Latin America, get somebody to invite me. And if you can attach that invitation some funding to fund my flight, my hotel, and some honorarium or something, then that reduces the burden on the Ayn Rand Institute to fund me, because they're limited in the amount of money that they can spend internationally. So ideally, if we could get local entrepreneurs or local businessmen or local student groups to fund my visits to these places and to send me an invitation to get me to come, that would be ideal. And then once I have some funding, then I can do lots of other talks. I don't mind doing talks for free, but I need to be able to get to a place, and I need to be able to justify it financially in terms of time. Let's see. For those who don't know, this is amazing progress in the UK. Yeah, so let me just say, when I came to the UK for the first time 15 years ago, and literally it was the first time I kind of came officially as the head of the institute, as an objectivist, to see what's going on here. You couldn't find her books in the bookstore. Nobody knew who she was. There was nothing, nothing here. Adam Smith Institute did an event about Ayn Rand, for 100th birthday, I think, but that was about it. There was nothing going on in 2005, 2006. And then I came, and I have to say, I'll take credit for a lot of this. I started coming and started doing events, initially with Adam Smith Institute, with universities, with different student groups. And slowly, over time, we have really built a presence in the UK. We now have the Ayn Rand lecture series. But it's been steady and systematic. Every year I've come, there's more. And I've started coming more than once a year, and really doing a lot of events. So I will give myself credit for really getting Ayn Rand going, interest in Ayn Rand going in the UK. And then, now we have an Ayn Rand meetup group here in the UK, and they've even started something called the Ayn Rand Center UK. So now there's a whole set of activism going on around this. But there was nothing 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So great. I mean, it just shows what you can achieve. In a sense, if you just show up. By just showing up, a lot can happen. Showing up and speaking and talking, and then we got the publisher of the UK books to reissue the books and to design new covers, and they suddenly showed up in the bookcases. And when I published my first book with Don Watkins, Free Market Revolution, we made sure it was published in the UK, and then it got good visibility in the UK, and it sold pretty well in the UK. So it's been a nice upward trend over the last 15 years, which is very exciting. All right, let's see. I think the English are more cultured than us, to be honest. I don't know that they're more cultured, although maybe some, but I just think the educational system's better. That's a big. I mean, it's all about education at the end of the day. All about education at the end of the day. References to Keynes tonight, negative references to Keynes tonight. Don't worry, I'll definitely do my part. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to record tonight's thing, and I'm not sure it's going to be recorded. and I don't know if I'll be able to live stream it. I'm still debating whether I'm going to schlep all the equipment over there. It's freezing outside, and I am not built for the cold. So I'll see. I'll see. Maybe I'll take the equipment and try to live stream it, but I really can't guarantee the live streaming. But again, if you want to help do more events in the UK where we're really having an impact, then what we need is your financial support. You can do that through the Ayn Rand Institute. Just put a note there that you want it to go to ARI Global or to the London events or to Yaron speaking in high schools or whatever, however specificity you want to make it. And you can also contribute on Patreon to my account, where you can again assign the funds to these kind of tours around the world. I'm going to be speaking quite a bit where it's not being funded by the Ayn Rand Institute and I have to fund it myself. So I'd appreciate any support you can provide there. And of course, substantial support gets substantial results. So I encourage you to write bigger checks. All right, let's see. Perhaps a less hostile environment can be explained by Gandhi's quote, "First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win." The US is further along, so they are the fight. Yeah, there's a sense in which that's true. But the US also had a longer history, right? The US has been fighting Ayn Rand for 50 years. So, yeah, they tried to ignore her early on, but they did fight her. Now, I agree, they are further along, and I do think there's I do think there's a, I don't know when the tipping point comes, but there is a point in which she's so popular, she's so common, the fight doesn't matter anymore. We are winning, and it's just a matter of time. All right. Am I still in favor of Brexit? No. I mean, I'm not, because I think they're messing it up. They're completely screwing it up. The politicians in the UK, taking something that could have been really good and messing it up. So if I had to vote for Brexit today, given what I know about what they're going to do, I'd vote against it. I think the Brits are going to land up with the worst of all worlds. They're going to land up with bad trade deals, bad immigration deals, bad capital movement deals, and with all the regulations that supposedly they were trying to avoid. They're going to inflict them on themselves, without UN intervention. Who needs Brussels? You can do it yourself. So no, I'm very negative on Brexit right now, unfortunately. Yeah, Luca mentions the fact that I started in Israel, then Texas, then California, now Puerto Rico. I spent my life avoiding the cold, I guess. Although I did do two stints in my childhood in London for 2.5 years and in Boston for 2 years. And I developed a hatred in both of those, a hatred of the cold. So I've been attracting, I've been seeking out warm weather ever since. I guess it really turned me off. The cold weather turned me off. So, that is interesting. Yeah, Luca, you're right. I mean, I've lost $500 over the last few days. I'm not sure what happened, so I'll have to check into that. Luca just mentioned that Patreon has just gone down from basically $5,000 to 4,481. Somebody must have dropped off, or somebody must have cut their support by about $500. So, which is kind of interesting. Let me see if I can figure out what happened. Yeah, I'm not sure. Pledge growth. Yeah, so somebody cut their pledge by $500. That's interesting. Maybe somebody made what they thought was an annual contribution and suddenly realized it was monthly. Because I did notice somebody had given $500, and my guess is that same person has now reduced it. I hope it's not something I said. I hope they discovered they actually didn't want to support me, but maybe somebody just deleted their $500 contribution. Maybe they thought it was a one-time thing and suddenly realized it was a monthly thing, or maybe they maybe they decided they didn't want to support me because of something I said, or they looked more deeply into what I believe. Hey, so I'm way behind, guys. February was actually a down month because of the loss of this one guy who gave $500, and 2 days ago it went away. So really appreciate, maybe because it doesn't, anyway, the name is it's an Indian name, so I don't know. It's maybe they got the bill and they decided not to pay. Who knows? But if you guys can make it up, I'd I'd appreciate it. So it's of course their choice, and happy for all the people who are supporting me. But $500 is a lot of money. To $500 I was counting on every month, so $6,000 a year just evaporated into nowhere. So I encourage you all to go. Those of you who haven't supported on Patreon, to support what we're doing. There's a lot of good stuff going on. I'll be trying to do shows this weekend, so expect a show on Friday, expect a show on Saturday, and expect a show on Sunday. I have a slightly freer schedule over the weekend. I'm going to try to also go to see some classical music concerts here in London. London's such a great place for classical music that it's a shame to come here and not do that. Maybe go see a play, but I will definitely be on here to complete what I started, which is earlier this week, to finish up some of the questions I got from Patreon subscribers, and also to do some newsy stuff. There's a bunch going on. All right. I think this test was a success. I'd appreciate if you could just spend the last few minutes just telling me how the quality of the audio and video was, and let me know if it was up to snuff. And okay, Corey has 2 questions. No, those are questions that I missed. All right. So yeah, if you could, in the comment section, just let me know the quality of the video, the quality of the audio. Is this good enough to be doing shows? And that would be terrific. For some reason, I'm generating 2 streams on YouTube. I'm gonna have to look into that and figure out why we're getting 2 streams on YouTube. Don't know. All right, we'll look into that and check. So AV is all good. I figured out how to trick the camera into working right with properly. So hopefully this will work in the next few days as well. Good. All right. I guess thank you, everybody. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for participating. Thanks for letting me test this out. Hopefully you enjoyed some of the content. We'll be keeping this posted up on Facebook and on YouTube, and maybe we'll even get it up on Blog Talk Radio. And I will talk to you. Today is Thursday. I'm off to the LSC in a little while, and I will talk to all of you on Friday, tomorrow night, London time. So probably afternoon, East Coast time, middle of the day, California time. And hey, all of those in Europe, you should take advantage of the fact that I'm on your time zone, or close to your time zone. London is still an hour behind the rest of Europe, and listen in live. All right, talk to y'all tomorrow.